Welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. If you enjoy our content, please like or subscribe.
Hi, I'm DV LeBron with the Ellis Talker Show. Do you have construction needs? Any construction needs? Check out K&H Construction. They'll take care of you. My guy Chris Helms in Waxahachie. And let them know DV LeBron sent you. Today, I'm doing a different type of interview. This is for the Ellis County GOP chair. There's an incumbent, Mr. Bellamy, and then there's a candidate running against him who is JJ Brookshire. And JJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks, DV. I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate everything you do for the community. You're certainly a community asset.
That means more than you know, my friend. But what made you want to go and throw your ring in the hat? I've known you in the area for a while, and you're a retired Army guy, and I definitely want you to get into that. But what made you get into this?
So I've been involved politically and in the community now, for almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in May. I've really seen it from the inside. I've been a precinct chair for the last roughly 9 years now. I've been an election judge. I'm also, real involved overall, communicating with various elected representatives. And though I think we've had some successes, I feel like overall the party's headed in the wrong direction. I think we have some issues with reputation and just branding of the Ellis County GOP. I think the brand needs some polishing. And I also am very concerned about the direction we're going when it comes to votes. We're one of the few counties in this part of Texas that's a Republican county that has been losing ground pretty steadily. By comparison, Collin County, Denton County, Tarrant County, from 20 to 24, the Republican percentage of votes actually went up. Ellis County went down. We lost nearly 5% ground in the Republican voting category from 2020 to 2024. And that's the wrong direction. And I think we're at a critical junction now in our time. I mean, we're looking at, if we don't win in November, we may wake up on after election day and find Senator-elect Crockett at the headline. And that's not something that we can tolerate. I think this just could be eternally damaging to not just Texas, but to the country, and certainly to Ellis County. So I decided it was time for me to do what I could. I'm not good at standing on the sidelines and just yelling at folks. I'd rather jump in and do it myself. So I've always been a big believer. You don't complain about something if you don't have a solution. So my solution is simply to get in here and lead from the front.
That is a very Army veteran type thing to do, lead from the front. That's what we do when we got out. There's plenty of veterans that are serving this community, and everybody, we put our foot forward. That's what we do. What is your long-term strategy? Because you talked about, the dipping numbers. What is your long-term strategy or vision for growing Republican engagement and voter turnout?
Well, there's several channels that we have to engage in. We have to improve the organization itself. The Ellis County GOP needs improvement. In many ways, we're still operated as if though we're kind of gravel roads and flashing lights. And that's not what Ellis County is today. Ellis County has grown. Ellis County is one of the top 10 fastest growing counties in America. So we have to move with that. And part of that means we need to welcome newcomers. So with the growth curve that we're having right now, we need to have an established methodology of welcoming every new household that comes into Ellis County and encourage them to get involved, make sure they're registering to vote, and then get them informed. I'm not a big believer in get out the vote. I'm a believer in get out the informed voter. So the Ellis County Republican Party, our job is to inform the voters and to engage them. So that requires some structural changes to the party itself. I believe we need to improve our training. Had someone asked me recently about my military background. They said, so what does that bring to the table? Well, I was an NCO, so I retired as a master sergeant from the Army. And as you know, DV, from your military experience, us NCOs, one of our primary focuses is to train. We train the younger soldiers. We make sure that they're as effective as possible. In our case, it's a life and death issue. Here in the GOP, it's not quite that serious, but we're responsible for training as well. If you're in charge, we need to train. So I think we need to train our precinct chairs. We need to train our volunteers so that they can be effective and they can be more efficient. And frankly, many of our volunteers, I spoke to one just the other evening, and she was telling me how she volunteers, but she feels like she's not really doing anything. And that's wrong. I think we need to make sure those volunteers feel like they're doing something because they need to be doing something. So one of my ideas is to actually form like a welcome wagon. When we get new people who move into the county, we reach out to them, welcome them to the county, introduce them to their precinct chair, ask them if they've registered to vote. If not, we'll help them get registered to vote. Make sure they understand who is their county commissioner, who is their constable, who is their JP. These things vary throughout the county. So we can help educate them and be that source of information. When we become a source of information that people go to, then with that, we gain respect, we gain importance within the parameters of the county itself, and it helps us to grow.
Yes. There's when it comes to that, there's definitely, the growth is something we've actually discussed growth. How will that, if you were elected, how would the party by the end of your term look? What is your idea for how it would look?
I think by the end of my term, I expect the party's brand to be very different. I want the party to be known as a place to get good, reliable information. I want the party to be a place where candidates can come to learn as well. I think we should provide candidate forums where we actually have seminars for people who are considering running for office. And that should be done months prior to the filing date. So if somebody's thinking about running for office, we have a seminar where they get together. We explain to them how it works and what's out there, and then help these really recruit better candidates. And that's part of our job, is to find the best candidates. And then we need to be that source of information. So I don't believe the party should appear to endorse a candidate in a primary. The party's job in the primary is to find good candidates and then to inform the voters, help the voters to get the most information possible. That means we set up forums. We should be setting up debates. We should be setting up meets and mingles so that our candidates can actually meet the voters can meet the candidates and ask questions. And then our information that we offer, like through our website, should be a hub. Voters should be able to go to our website and find information on every candidate with links to their websites. There should be a centralized calendar on our website so all candidate events are listed. And that allows not just the candidates to try to avoid stepping on other scheduled events, but it allows the voters to see, hey, what's available? Where can I meet my candidates? How can I get out there and get more involved? So again, we should be the source of information. So what I hope is 2 years from now, if I'm elected, and 2 years later, we have a much more educated voter base, much more informed, and we have a better reputation for the Ellis County Republican Party so that we're that source of information.
Conservative values. Where do you stand on those, and clarify how you stand on those?
Sure, interesting. So my first presidential election that I voted in was Ronald Reagan's second term. I can honestly say I've never voted for a Democrat in my life. I've been conservative my entire life. I marched in pro-life marches back in the day when I was much younger and able to march a little better. But I've been very involved in all conservative aspects, really. I consider myself very conservative. I supported Trump when he first came down the escalator. I looked over at my wife and I said, wait and see, he'll be the nominee. And I think he has a great shot at being president. And I think his policies are outstanding. There's a few things sometimes I wish he would say a little differently, but I think his policies are just bar none. They're great. I don't think you'll find anybody more conservative than me when it comes to policies. Now, I'm very open to inviting people in. If I disagree with somebody on 20% of something, it doesn't mean I'm going to close the door and not want to talk to them. My job at that point is to try to convince them on that 20%, to engage with them and talk to them. But we have to remember, as a party, our job is to win in November. So if I have someone I disagree with on one subject or the other, I still want them to vote Republican in November. That means I have to involve them and welcome them, not attack them personally. Certainly, we can debate topics. I have some very good friends who they're Republicans, but they're never Trumpers. They will tell you they don't support President Trump. I disagree strongly with them on that, but we're still friends. And I still hope in November they'll vote on the Republican side.
We were from a generation where you could still do that. You disagreed and you just went on. Election integrity.
Yeah.
It's something that has been discussed, and how will you work with poll watchers, volunteers on election night to ensure transparency?
So my perspective is that not just as a voter, but as an elections judge. I've been an elections judge now for several years. Frankly, I'm very happy with the way Ellis County does things. Not many, everyone knows this, but Ellis County, each of our ballots actually has a sequential number. They're all numbered with a serial number. Okay. Each ballot is signed by the elections judge on location. At the start of the night, we're handed a stack of ballots. We have a count. Throughout the day, throughout the start of the election day, we're counting these ballots. We keep up with them. At the end of the evening, when we close the polls, we know how many ballots we started with. We know how many ballots were cast. We know how many were spoiled if something had to be discarded. And then we also know if there were any that went in the provisional basket. So anything that was a provisional ballot. We actually count per ballot. We count every single one. And at the end of the night, it should match up exactly. In the years that I've done this, I've never been missing any ballots. We're exactly right on. And I think that's true of most locations. It then gets to the elections office. We get the information there where they count the votes. And they have multiple ways of checking. We have a thumb drive, so electronics. We have the hard copies that are saved. We have a tape where it's printed out. Everything should match. And then there's an audit that is done on the ballots later on and on the vote to make sure that it matches. So they'll hand feed ballots into a machine to recount, make sure the count matches what it's supposed to. So I really like the way it's done in Ellis County. I like the fact, of course, we require voter ID. I think that's important. Unfortunately, we have other counties that don't do such a good job, and that's something we need to work on. A few elections ago, we had Harris County that found a box of ballots in a closet at one of the locations several days after Election Day. That's just unconscionable. I don't know how that can happen. As an election judge, there's no way I'd be going home that night if I'd lost a box of ballots or my count was off. So it's just we have to standardize the way we operate our elections, and we need better supervision. And frankly, I think we need laws to handle that a little better. I disagree with the recent ruling by some of the courts that does not allow the state attorney general to prosecute election fraud. They put it in the hands of the counties. And that needs to go back to, that needs to be the attorney general's job. That really needs to be a state function, because we can't, if a county is having election issues, there's a good chance there may be some, let's say, improper conduct on the part of the county itself. So we don't want them looking out for their own. That needs to be looked at a higher level. So I think the state should prosecute election fraud.
Yeah, always. Absolutely. It is one of the things that we fought for,
Right. Absolutely.
the right to vote, and it be counted and correct every time. We talked about if you were elected and you took over the party, what it would look like, and you described what it looked like. And if I don't know if you address this, but how will you recruit and train strong precinct chairs in Ellis
So
County? Because that's part of it, right? Growing.
it's a huge part of it. It's not just the numbers, though. It's not that we don't need more numbers. We need trained and really need qualified precinct chairs. So the way I look at it is your precinct chairs are like a board of directors. And if this was a company, that would be your board of directors. So what I would ask people to do is look at your precinct chairs and ask yourself, if I had invested money in that company, is that who I want for my board of directors? In some cases, the answer is absolutely yes. Great precinct chairs. In others, they're not quite as engaged as they could be. And in some cases, it's not even their fault. I think they just need training. They need that opportunity. So, for example, I think every precinct chair should be a deputy voter registrar. I've been walking and knocking on doors for the last few days, and I'll be doing that throughout the campaign. And every day, literally every day when I knock on doors, I find somebody who says, well, haven't registered yet, or I just moved here, I need to move. I'm a voter registrar. I fill out their registration information, and the next day I take it and turn it in an elections office. Well, to me, that's something that every precinct chair should be doing. So when you meet new voters in your precinct, you ask them, have you registered to vote yet? Have you moved your location yet? If not, I have the document. Let's knock this out and get it done. So those are the sort of services that these precinct chairs need to be able to perform. That means we as a party need to train them. It's not the chair's fault necessarily. It's a lack of leadership and a lack of training. So we need to provide that training to them. We need to make them more efficient in the tools that we give them. We have access to great data center information, for example. Well, I think all the precinct chairs need to be more proficient using that data center. So that way they're better understanding what's going on within their precinct. makes it easier to communicate.
Right. That, I mean, technology has changed everything.
It
Now,
is, and here's the thing: if a precinct chair feels like they're more effective, the recruiting almost takes care of itself. Because if you feel like you're doing something and you're accomplishing something, then that's going to show. And people want to do something where they're accomplishing things. That's the biggest thing. I mean, nobody wants to do something and feel like they're just not getting something done. If you're volunteering, which a precinct chair is a volunteer job, then at least be able to accomplish things and know that you're moving the needle forward.
I got three more questions that I was thinking about. One of them is the part when you talked about getting different people. There's a lot of growth in Ellis County, and there's a lot more people that are starting to look like me. And, while we don't play that game like Democrats, it is important that we reach out to those communities because in the last election, they helped Trump win.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on expanding the party?
So that's a great question, and I want to first say that I didn't ask you to ask me that question. So this is convenient timing for me. So I'm launching today, actually, VOTA, VOTA, Brookshire.com, which is Spanish for vote, Brookshire.com. So I have built and launched the website, VOTA, Brookshire.com, specifically to reach out to the Hispanic community. My mother's side of the family is Hispanic. She's second generation U.S. citizen. Her parents were born here. Her grandparents were born in Mexico around the turn of the century. And when I grew up in South Carolina as a child with my father's side of the family, we only spoke English. We didn't get a lot of exposure to the Hispanic side of my family. But I would visit periodically with my mom's family and, would come back to Texas and visit. And one of the things that always impressed me about the Hispanic side of my family was their work ethic. I had an uncle that worked 40 years for Union Carbide and literally never missed a day of work in 40 years. So to me, Hispanic culture represents hard work ethic. It represents strong family values, strong Christian foundations. My mother today, she's in church 5 or 6 times a week, I think, and that's kind of the culture. A lot of family value, a lot of Christianity, Christian values, incredible work ethic. Well, the reality is Hispanics are Republican. They just may not know it. So what I think we do as a party is we help inform them that we agree with them on nearly everything when it comes to their values, their core principles align directly with the Republican Party. We just have to communicate that message.
As the chair, do you have to follow the state when they put the GOP platform for Texas? Do you have to follow that? And if it comes to something that you don't agree with, how do you deal with that?
So the platform is interesting. The state platform, which I actually have on my website for people to read because it's fairly long, is literally hundreds of planks. Some of these planks is really hard to agree with because frankly they're impossible. For example, at one time we had a plank in there that dictated how military commanders would function on federal installations. Well, you and I both know from our experience that you can't do that. I mean, the state
Right.
doesn't get to tell a military commander how to function, right? But whoever put it in the plank, they felt good about it. They thought it was a good idea, so they inserted that into the platform at the time. So there's some things in the platform that are pretty difficult to support because they just don't work. I mean, they're just not possible. That's not to say that I'm out fighting against the platform. We have to support the platform and we have to support the key principles, our legislative agenda, our legislative priorities. Those were chosen as priorities at the state convention for a reason. So I certainly support the key Republican values. I support our legislative priorities and would do nothing to undermine that.
As the chairman, and I'm not positive of this, I should know more, but I imagine as the chairman, you have to get the money to continue going, right?
Yes,
You got to raise the money
that's
for
right.
the Ellis County GOP. So you
Well,
got
I
to
mean,
get
the party has to raise money. I mean, obviously funding is always an issue for any organization. So
mhm.
part of my idea there is we have an annual fundraiser. We want to keep doing that. I think that's a great event. If nothing else, it's a great time to get together and have fellowship with each other. So I
Yeah.
think that's a good event to continue. However, I think we need to be raising funds throughout the year and not just one annual event. And when I mean fundraising, that means, things like let's do coffees, let's do lunches, let's do breakfast, let's get together and have donations available there when we get together with folks. I'd like to have a shop online as part of our website with, perhaps t-shirts or hats or mugs or koozies or whatever available for folks to purchase. And a small portion of that would come to the county, whatever profits we would come to the county GOP as well. So there's a lot of ways that we can be bringing in funds. We can get sponsorship on various things that we do. I was talking about the welcome wagon plan for the new folks coming in. I can imagine there'd be multiple businesses who would maybe want to be part of that. So when we go knock on these folks' door, we can also hand them information on, local businesses at the same time, kind of a little packet of information the way the old welcome wagon used to do. They simply help fund the cost of that operation because there's cost of getting that data, obviously. So, there's things like that we can do throughout the year. The way we raise money can be improved, certainly. I believe, for example, the county needs the GOP needs its own cell phone so that when we do these fundraisers, we have the ability to take Venmo and take Zelle and Cash App and these other, applications of bringing in funds. Currently, it's difficult for us to do that because we just don't have the structure for it. It's just getting with technology.
Yeah. It, this county, just like in national politics, you have discussions between Republicans. You got
Right.
one side who's lockstep, and then you have discussions because there's no room for any there's no room in the other side for disagreement. You must be as you are. So
Right.
we got a lot of people that are in the party, and there's little rumbles between Republicans. That has not. I mean, that actually has come all the way down.
Absolutely.
What
Yeah.
way? What? And it's in Ellis County,
Yes.
and there is you know. I want to make sure I say this right. There is just a big conflict between you know these two different visions for the party, and it's tearing people apart.
It is. It is. And it causes problems because when we get into personal attacks, it does a few things. Some very good candidates won't consider running for office because they don't want to go through that meat grinder. And that may keep out some quality candidates that really could serve us well. The other issue, I think, is at the end of a primary, if we get into the weeds and get into this bloodbath sort of situation, then when the primary is over, those who came out second, those who did not win, often are just so hurt, so upset, so angry over the whole thing that now they decide, well, I can't vote for the other guy in November because, we drew blood previously. So then they either sit home or they leave it blank in November, both of which is a disservice to the party. So I think it's important that we keep it civil. I'm all about debating. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with endorsing candidates and individuals to endorsing, but the party should not endorse. That's not the party's job in a primary. The party's job is to inform the voters, and then the voters will make a decision. Now, after election day, regardless of who wins, whether it was my choice or not, I have to support them 100% because now they have that R next to their name and they've earned that right. So now, as a party, our job is to make sure they win in November. Well, part of that is to keep it civil through the primary season. So, I had this question asked to me recently, and they said, well, what if somebody, because they talk about social media and somebody posting negative things on social media. And someone said, well, what if you saw a precinct chair had posted something negative on social media, some sort of a personal attack or something? How would you handle it? And the answer is simple. I would contact them directly and say, hey, would you mind toning that down or taking it down and understand they have the right to endorse. I can't take that away from anybody. That's your First Amendment right. Okay, I get that. And as a precinct chair, they can do that. You can't stop that. Again, all I would ask is that they either tone it down and take the personal attack out of it, or they at least put a disclaimer on there that says, hey, that's my opinion. That's how I feel. That's not necessarily the opinion of the Ellis County Republican Party. So we need that disclaimer. If you're going to use your title and the title ties you to the Ellis County Republican Party, then please point out that that is your personal opinion. That's all I would ask.
Yeah, I mean, it has been ugly. And I'm a person who operates in kindness. That's where I'm at in life, and trying to be straight down the middle with everybody, and having so many people on, and even I've been
Hey,
scraped.
DV,
Everybody's getting scraped.
I don't know if that was a snowstorm causing it or what, but I missed most of that question. Can you repeat it?
I was just saying that, I've witnessed the carnage and the bad things,
Yeah,
and I operate in kindness. That's what I do. So,
you
trying
do.
to stay
Absolutely.
right down the middle on all this has been interesting this year. It has. So, but I hope that you 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 out in Ellis County got something out of this. I hope you were able to get some information about JJ. JJ, how can they reach you if they want to communicate with you and ask you questions?
It's really simple. So it's jjbrookshire.com. That's my website. I also have my phone number on my 4x4 signs all over the county. I have my phone number on my website. My phone number is 415 vote GOP. Now, I know the area code's not local, but frankly, I couldn't get vote GOP on a local area code. So
It you got to do it. You improvise. So that's how it was. So thank you so much again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.